Okay, on to part 3 now. First firing up of the Spark system. Initial impressions of Spark. What's it like to trigger, what are the sounds like, and what kind of things can it do? And then we'll move on and show how everything works in detail. Okay, the hardware unit has to be switched on, sitting in standby, so the software can detect it when it boots. So first thing we do is switch on the hardware unit, and actually you find that the power switch on the back turns the unit on and off even if you're only getting power from USB, so that's cool. So we switch it on, does a little lighting display, during which time it shows the current firmware version in the screen, and now it's sitting in standby waiting for the software. So I'll boot the software off camera, here we go, and the software detects the hardware as it boots. There we go. Yeah. Okay, it's all connected up, and whenever you fire up the Spark system, it always loads the last project you were working on, and a project is all the kit and all the patterns that go with that. Okay, so that's a project. But if you haven't used it before, it boots into the default project 80 Studio Drums, which does what it says on the tin, you know, like early 80s studio drum machine sound, Grandmaster Flash, Bobby Brown, Run DMC type thing, you know. And the first thing is, how does it trigger? Well, all the pads are backlit, velocity sensitive, and the first thing you notice about Spark is that it triggers instantly, and I mean instantly. I've used hardware going all the way back to the early 80s, you know, when it was all tape and early MIDI equipment connected up by SIMPTE, you know. And I can't tell the difference between this and a real bit of hardware. I really can't. Instant hardware-like triggering, even on quite conservative buffers on your audio in-out device, so that's fantastic. I'll tell you, you sit down with this thing for a couple of minutes and you completely forget that you're using a controller and software. Fantastic. So instant hardware-like triggering. And the next thing is, well, what does Spark do? And everyone talks about it as a drum machine, and yeah, in all fairness, it does say Creative Drum Machine across here, but as I keep saying, you've got to think about Spark as it's a cross between a drum machine, an MPC type sampler unit, and a workstation type unit, all rolled into one. It does a bit of everything. So of course, yeah, it does all your drums, huge collection of drums comes with it, but also it does synth sounds, keyboard sounds, bass sounds, pad sounds, sub-bass sounds, all that stuff as well. And of course it does everything that an MPC type sampler unit does as well, audio wise. So it'll play all your little audio bits, it'll play of course all your drum loops and other loops, it'll do all that. But one thing that isn't talked about so much with Spark is that because it doesn't have the memory limitation of traditional hardware, you can use Spark to play back really long bits of audio. So Spark will play back, for example, an entire vocal chorus hook if you need to do that live, or an entire real played bass line or a real played guitar riff. I mean, hell, this thing will even play back all your verse vocals and your chorus vocal if you have to do that live, you know. So it will play back these really long bits of audio, and I'll show you an example of that further on in this bit we're doing now. But first of all, let's check out the sounds you get with it out the box. Okay, so we'll check the sounds, then I'll show you this long audio thing and a couple of other bits. Then we'll move on to showing how it all works, alright? So let's check out the sounds. So let's start by listening to some of the drum machines, okay? Just the drum machines start with. You a big selection of drum machines, done with a combination of physical analog modelling and samples, and from all eras, early analog through to sort of early 90s, I suppose, drum machines, you know. So let's listen to some of those. Ace Clone. This one's called CL78. Here's a Korg DDM120. Here's a DMX. 606. 626. Which should have those sort of cannon-like toms, shouldn't it? Yep. The old TR-707, you know, the classic 12-bit multi-out. They've also got the TR-727 in here. Good addition, this one, actually. Yeah, for beginners, these early drum machines had very limited sample time, very, very short samples. So these Latin sounds from the 727, they don't sound very realistic in isolation, but you put them into a mix and they really sit in the mix well and don't clutter the mix. That's a good addition, that one. There's the 808, of course. And 909. Here's a DR55. Here's a drumulator. Here's an SCI drum tracks. Here's an EMU SP12. Here's an old Casio tone. KPR. This one's called KR100. I think this might be a Kawai, I'm not sure. It doesn't sound that early a drum machine. And you've got a couple of Lins, of course, Lin 9000. And a Lin drum. Lin drum. And before that the Lin 9000, so a couple of Lins there. There's this Maestro King. And that sounds like the drum machine, doesn't it, on La Vie en Rose, Grace Jones, if you turn the tempo up. Micro Pops. Micromatics. Not sure what this is. But it does this kind of synthy bass drummy sound with a bit of fizz on it, you know. R-Zone this is called. I think it's a Casio RZ. Yeah, I think it's an RZ. Here's an old Roland R8. Roland R8. Simmons. Put the song on for this. This is the demo song. Which has got those lovely Simmons synth toms, you know, for doing your, you know, authentic early 80s slide Dunbar licks. You know, around the time he was playing with Black Uhuru and he had the fan toms and the Simmons pads. And I'll tell you, if you just stand here playing this Simmons, you could be in a studio in the 80s triggering a Simmons brain from a Lin, you know. There's this one called Sin Drummer. I'm not sure if it's a drum machine, but this is it. This is called Vintage Box. There's an old Yamaha analog thing. And then there's a Yamaha RX5, which should have quite accurate short toms. Yep. So, you know, this massive selection of drum machines, and you can mangle them to high heaven if you want, make them into something completely different. And then there's all the other sounds. It doesn't just do drum machine, old and new drum machines. It's got all your sounds in as well. So we'll just go through a few of those. Big thumping kick drum on that one. As you go through the more contemporary sounds, as you hear like big kicks, you know, lots and lots of big contemporary kicks, and it does very deep sub basses as well if you want it to. You're not going to catch this on the camera, but some of these patches have got really deep sub bass. You can tune the basses by hertz increments to get exactly the frequency you want, and this thing, trust me, does seriously deep bass. You can clearly hear it does old school stuff, so if you work in some kind of agency that has to reproduce old electronic music, something like this would be ideal, you know. Or if you work on retro stars, you know. And again, you can't hear it, but there's a massive sub bass on this going whoop, 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 like that. Again, big bass on that one. You know, it makes sounds as well. You know, do all wacky weird stuff as well. Etc. And as I said, it does real sounding drums, it does acoustic drums. Here's one called Funk Drums, and this is done with physical modelling and samples and what have you. Funk Drums. You know, and it's got a rock kit as well, and you can, as I say, drag and drop your own sounds in. Let me find this rock kit. Element PQ. Oh, rock drums, actually it's called. Here we go. Rock drums, again done with physical modelling and what have you. And I can tell you from having a look around at this thing for a while, playing with this for a few weeks, that for example on this rock drum kit, the physically modelled snare, it has a parameter that you can adjust, which is almost like moving the mic, you know, so you can have more of the snare, more of the middle of the drum, more of the top, you know. Not bad at all, and you get nice long cymbals as long as you want, of course. So yeah. What else we got? French toast. I like this one. Brazilian, this is called. Yeah, this one again is it's another acoustic modelled, real acoustic drum sounding kit. It's a selection of Latin percussion modelled and sampled and whatever, and it does this little samba thing, you know. And actually, very good Surdo sample they've got in there. It's really nice. Etc. Acid, this one's called. I don't know if I dare play this. Here we go. Come on. Whoa, acid. So as you can see, Spark is incredibly versatile. It does the lot. It does all your drums and other sounds, and it does a bit of everything, doesn't it? Very, very versatile. Including, of course, playing all your audio parts, small audio clips, drum loops and other loops, etc. And of course, it'll also play back long audio parts, and I said I'd show you that, so let's do that now. I made myself a little Sleng Teng. Now, beginners, if you don't know what a Sleng Teng is, it's a classic 80s track and bass line. And it sounds like this. Okay, now I've got the Sleng Teng vocal on this pad here, and it lasts for 4 bars in length. I'll count them. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the vocal is 4 bars long, and I got it by just capturing the Sleng Teng track off YouTube, putting it into Logic, using the EQ to take the bottom and top off and just isolate the vocal range. You can still hear the beat behind it, but you know. And then I simply imported it onto a pad in Spark, which is as easy as just dragging the sound file from your hard drive and dropping it onto any of the pads in the software, and then the sound is installed on that pad. And then simply, the pattern that the Sleng Teng is made around is 64 beats in length. Any Spark pattern can be up to 64 beats in length. So the pattern is 4 cycles of 16. So the Sleng Teng, which lasts for 4 bars, fits inside one 64 beat pattern. And therefore all I'm doing is I'm triggering it on the 3rd beat of the bar, and it's just playing around in sync inside that 64 beat pattern. Like this. simple as that. Long audio parts. And if your audio part is too long to play back inside a maximum length 64 beat or step pattern, then chop it up into different bits and trigger one bit in one pattern, the next bit in the next pattern, etc. But it will do all your long audio parts, okay? And lastly, just to show you another thing, to make my bass line I use the old school technique of having the sound on different pads and tuning each pad to the notes of my bass line. So I've got a 4-note bass line and these are the 4 notes. So I just made the sound, copied it to 3 other pads, tuned each pad to the 4 notes of my bass line, and then I just recorded it in. But although you can do that old school technique on Spark, since version 1.51, Spark has this new feature called Tune Mode, which allows you to play any pad as a melodic instrument, play melodic patterns. But you don't have to do the old school technique of copying the sound to multiple pads and tuning them to the notes of your pattern. You can do it all from one pattern. You just choose the sound pad you want, put Spark into tune mode, and then that pad can be played as a melodic instrument from the buttons on the top as a keyboard, or from the pads. So you can play your bass line like that, and you can have melodic patterns or bass lines or synth patterns or whatever, but only played using one pad. You don't have to use more pads. It's incredibly versatile, this thing. But I'll show you the tune mode in the next bit. Okay. So that's the end of the appraisal. That's kind of what Spark can do. Okay. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes. The next part is a full tutorial of the front panel, showing you how everything works, including a couple of old school techniques and a couple of tricks, you know. Okay. So I'll see you for that.